So the Osmo Action 6 just got announced, and one thing that I've not seen anybody talk about with the Osmo Action 6 is its new appearance of color science. And no matter what review I watch, this stays consistent. So I decided to make a presentation to show you exactly what I'm talking about because it might seem a little confusing because I'm not good at getting my point across sometimes. So, anyways, let me explain what I mean. So, first of all, I wanted to prove to you guys, okay, first of all, I'm not sponsored by DJI. I just want to make that clear. I have like 9,000 subscribers. I'm not sponsored by them. But today, nevertheless, I still bought my DJI Osmo Action 6, and it's going to arrive December 4th. So I've pretty much missed the train. I tried to set an alarm to get it, but when I woke up to the alarm at 7 in the morning, it wasn't anywhere to be found on Amazon. Then I, set an alarm for 9. By that time, the orders were already too late. But anyways, who cares about that? I just wanted to prove to you guys, I'm not just talking about something to make money, okay? I bought this camera myself. I've been waiting for this camera, and this camera has the exact thing that I was hoping it would have. And let me explain to you what I mean. So, the thing is with action cameras and cameras in general, well, a lot of people don't realize there are subconscious attributes to footage and the color science that makes them think certain things, and it makes them have certain feelings that they associate with content. So, for example, the FTRX 3000 is a completely neutral camera, probably the best color science of any action camera ever, and that does tend to give people a neutral feeling. But one issue that I found, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but first I just want to say, right, when you look at these two images, do you have a different feeling when you look at both of them? Now, I have to admit, there are definitely some people, maybe a lot of people, that do not, don't get affected by colors and imagery as much as others. Now, for me, imagery and what I see affects me, and colors, they affect my mood a lot. And I don't know why, but I was just born that way. I used to get depressed in the wintertime when I was a kid because I live somewhere where we don't see the sun for about 6 months. So, when I would see an image on the left here, the blue one, definitely would feel a bit sad, dismayed, hard to explain, but, just kind of the opposite of that feeling of summer, that liveliness and that energy. Now, on the right, I would feel happy. It makes me feel warm. It makes me feel secure and safe for some reason. Now, I know that's all subjective, but there are a lot of people that do prefer the warm color tones. So, the thing that DJI has been struggling with is something that I coined the Android look. Now, I have nothing against Androids. I've had an Android phone before. But the reason that people even say this is that people don't like the fact that Android phones don't all have a camera that looks the same. So the thing about Apple that they've nailed is the fact that they can optimize everything because they know the hardware is always going to be the same. So that's why their photos always look very good on the iPhone. It's because optimization is extremely easy to do. Imagine having to optimize an Android phone. There's one software, Android, but imagine having to optimize the camera for every different sensor that every different Android phone uses. It's freaking impossible. So the Android look is when people look at your camera's image and they get an impression or feeling that something about the camera looks cheap or off market. Now, I'm not just making this up. I saw this many times actually in YouTube comments when I used to read I used to watch reviews on YouTube where they would compare all the action cameras, Ace Pro, DJI Osmo Action 5, all these cameras. And one thing that people kept saying about the Action 5 was that it felt kind of like it looks like an Android phone, which is like, I don't know what they meant by that, but they said that it feels cheap. The camera feels cheap. And I think one reason for that is that the shadows were getting crushed. So my theory about this is that Apple tends to be biased towards warmer tones. And because of this, the premium feeling started to get associated with magenta bias over green bias and warmer tones over colder tones. And one thing that I kind of thought was, hey, like, you know, the DJI Action 5 and the Nano, first of all, they all seem to be biased towards green instead of magenta. And second of all, which you really shouldn't be biased towards either. I mean, you should be, you know, accurate. But they also seem to be more biased towards cold colors. Now, I was thinking about this, and I was like, wait a minute. DJI is a company based out of China, and maybe people think that this is a more normal color profile to them. This is more normal color science to them. So when the entire the vast majority of the population has an Android phone, actually, the Android phones tend to look more in line with the image quality of the DJI Osmo, the DJI Action 5 and whatnot. And so basically this actually might look more normal to people in China to prioritize kind of colder tones more often because that's something that, I don't know, Apple tends to be warmer for some reason. Now, the alternate explanation that I had, in case that's too crazy, is that Apple actually just had Apple, with its proprietary technology, actually just has some of the most accurate white balance, color accuracy, sensors, and HDR due to its tech monopoly and proprietary color science, which is probably true. It's, you know, many, many billions of dollars in their company, plus their optimization. Yeah, maybe it doesn't bias towards warm. Maybe it actually just picks up the warmness that we see. I don't know. But let me show you some examples now so I don't seem crazy. Now, I'll try to give credit to all the people in the description. I'm throwing this together kind of quick because, but I'm going to try to put credit in the description. Mostly just took screenshots of other people's reviews. I did buy the camera myself. I tried my best, but at the end of the day, I can't compete with everyone else. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not sponsored by DJI here, so I would have to wait until December 4th to make any video on this. Anyways, the dim feeling. I coined another term called the dim feeling. This is the type of sad feeling that you get when the cloud blocks the sun. When a cloud blocks the sun on a summer day and you kind of start to feel cold. Have you ever done that? Have you ever, looked at a scene? Now, this might just be me. I don't know if this is something that only visual people experience. But have you ever looked at kind of like a beautiful park or something on a summer day, or maybe you're swimming or something, and it looks perfect, but then a cloud comes and blocks the sun, and suddenly everything looks dim, dark, and gloomy, and it makes you feel a little bit like you want the sun to come back? Am I the only one who feels like that? Because if I am, then, that's totally fine with me, right? This might just be me, but I think this is a real thing, even if it's just subconscious for some people. And as you can see, on the Action 5 Pro here, this is a prominent effect. So the shadows are dark and gloomy. The light is good, but it's too contrasted here. The contrast between the the highlights and shadows is far too much. Like, look how bright the highlights are here, and then look how quickly, look how quickly the shadows get super dark in between these branches of the tree. And then look at the buildings, right? There's this general kind of gloomy vibe, almost like a cloud covered the sun back here. And with this building as well. Me personally, I don't like it. Oh no, my Mac battery's low. Okay, so here we go. Here's another example. If you didn't see in the first example, this one's even worse, right? Action 5 Pro. I mean, this guy's whole shoulder's practically just pure black in the shadow. And the shadows are getting crushed here. Even the color of the branches here kind of feel like almost like winter or something. And this, mind you, this guy is in a 80-degree climate, and it's just sunny, right? Now, does it feel like that from the video? No, because the problem with the Nano and the Action 5 cameras, and this has been DJI's crutch in my opinion, or Achilles heel in my opinion, is that it looks good when you're in the right angle, but then when the sun goes to the back of you, that high amount of contrast looks almost like the same overblown contrast as the Sony FDR X3000. And that was from, 2018, 2017? I mean, that camera's from a long time ago. And it kind of looks the same almost. So, in my opinion, this whole image isn't looking too good. It looks a bit too dim to me. And the reason I bring this up, by the way, is GoPro has nailed the getting rid of that feeling of gloominess, right? Kind of that dark, overcast type of vibe. GoPro almost never has that. And that's one thing I loved about GoPro, and that's why before this Action 6 had dropped, I've been having a lot of issues with figuring out what to get. So anyways, next camera. So here's the Nano. Nano's great. Part of that is because the field of view angle is a lot smaller, and I think that looks very good. I'm extremely happy I have a Nano, and I have not regretted getting that camera once, dude. Or buying it, I haven't regretted buying it once. Every time I see that thing, it makes me happy. In fact, the other day, I took my Nano and I stuck it on top of my car, and I could see what the Nano was seeing with my display, and the footage was pretty cool. So here's the Nano. The Nano looks good in the right lighting. Same with the Action 5. This is a great example of the lighting facing the right way, right? But when you turn around, suddenly you start to see the blacks getting crushed again, the darks getting crushed again, the shadows getting crushed again. Okay, and it's a little bit better actually than the Action 5, but it still feels a bit too dark for me. And you might be saying, can I edit this in post? You can. But I definitely tried to do that myself, and it just wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy. I thought it'd be easy. I thought I'd just crank the shadows up and call it a done deal. And it didn't work like that, unfortunately. I really thought I could just crank the shadows up, but no. So it's not as easy as it seems to make this look like GoPro. I'm not even sure if it's possible. Anyways, watch what happens when we go to the Action 6 now. Boom! Right? This looks amazing. This looks upbeat. This looks warm. The image feels warm. And all of the colors are just working for me right now. This is the same vibe that I get with the GoPro, but I'd say a little more color accurate. So I haven't made up my mind. The jury's still out as to whether or not the GoPro or I'm sorry, the Action 6 actually has a bias towards warmer colors, or if it's just, being color accurate, and the color accuracy itself is going to look warm. I don't know. But anyways, here's the point, man. No more dim feeling, okay? This image just looks good. It looks like a GoPro to me. If you want, you could bump the contrast up a little bit. Well, not the contrast, the saturation and the vibrance. And, I mean, this would look pretty nice. The only thing I don't like about the DJI Action 6 still is that sometimes it really overemphasizes the blues too much. And that's just something they got to fix. But it's easy for me, though, because I'm not good at getting the details of the shadows with the Action 5, but I can easily, tone down the blues, tone down the saturation a little bit if I need to. Okay, so here we go. Top left, Pocket 3, top right, Nano, bottom left, Action 5 Pro, bottom right, Action 6. Now, if you look closely and you can see that, by the way, this is probably more like the good lighting that I was talking about, where it's not an issue with the Nano and the Action 5, but you can see with the Action 6, it just looks good, man. So here's some things I noticed, right? So here, let's go to the Action 5. Action 5 shadow detail here, just a bit dark. Over here, brightened up. Okay, over here, you got a bit of that dim feeling. Over here, it's a little bit lighter. Over here, the windows are a bit too dark. It just doesn't match to have the contrast be that high, where the darks are right next to the lights. That sounded weird, but what I mean is, like, the shadows are too dark. And on the right, you can see that the parts of the window that have the shadows are lightened up a lot. Now, over here on the tree, you can see the shadows super dark, crushed. On the right, the shadows are light, looking nice and light. And then on the left, we can see that one tree, very dark in the shadows. And this other one just looks a lot better. Dynamic range looks better. This tree looks too dim. This one looks better. This tree here looks nice and light. Everything looks nice and vibrant and light. Okay. Once again, can you guess which camera is which? Yeah, the camera 1 is the Action 6. Camera 2 is the Action 5. And, I mean, look at this, bro. This is what I was talking about when I was saying that. The problem with the Action 5 and sometimes the Nano is when you turn around and the sun's facing the wrong way, you just get crushed in the shadows. I mean, all the details just disappear. And that was my biggest issue. But, I mean, look at this. You can see her hair that got completely crushed is great details over here. And then you can see that her coat that just, like, almost disappeared into a silhouette. You can see that all that fuzzy detail is still there in the Action 6. This is really great. This is exactly what I was hoping for. The background looks dim and gloomy, and we're talking about England, right? But on the right, even in England, the background's looking kind of nice and light. And yeah, okay. Next image. Once again, hair's crushed. Action 6 way better. Background, with the sunlight, the Action 6 is looking, upbeat and more vibrant. And in the back, it's got that dim Android look again. That's super annoying. And then once again, with here and with here, you know what I mean. Okay, so one more. So there's a bit of a bias now towards like a little bit higher exposure, but I don't mind that. First of all, you can change that in the settings if you want it. And second of all, it's just looking right now. It's looking right. I mean, look at all this detail in the jacket, and look at all this detail lost in the DJI Action 5. I mean, this is looking good. So here's Potato Jet. Okay, so that's the Action 5 Pro. Look at his face, crushed in the shadows. Once again, the background's crushed a bit. All of it's just kind of lost in the shadows. Action 6, it's looking like a GoPro, but a little more color accurate, which is nice. And then look at what happens when you catch the sun the wrong way with the Action 5. I mean, super irritating. That you just look like a shadow, and it's not right because you are the main focus of the video. You should be well lit, and this looks a lot better lit right here, as well as the fact that the blues in the left are looking little bit more blue than on the right, where the tones are warmer and a little more comfortable. And so I took this image, this screenshot, just to show you the tones. So as you can see, the tones on the left of the Action 5 Pro are kind of cold, but on the right in the Action 6, this really looks a lot like a GoPro, which is awesome because I love the GoPro. Let me check my battery life. Oh crap, I got 5% battery. Quick. All right, I got to do this quick. So, the Action 5 Pro, at nighttime, you can see it is blue, and the Action 6 at night, you can see is nice and warm. So here's the GoPro's warm color science, which I've grown to love. I mean, look at this, right? It doesn't look too blue. The sky doesn't look too blue where it looks weird. The sand looks nice and warm. The sunlight feels warm and looks warm. And it's just the right vibe for where it is, right? You're in tropical paradise. You got to be able to see that warm sun coming down on you. And then even in here, you can see that there's that bias towards the magenta. I mean, the snow should just be plain white, but that's pretty hard to do in these settings and conditions. But the sun looks beautiful, and one thing I got to admit about GoPro is that the sharpness is good. Once again, the sharpness looks great here, although I think there might be some AI upscaling going on. This is from GoPro's official thing, but forget about that. Let's look at the color. Once again, the color of the GoPro is really amazing. I mean, this looks great, and you got to give it to GoPro for making the colors look nice. And this was the dead giveaway. This is a screenshot, and to me, this just looked like AI upscaling. So if you look at his jacket patterns, it looks a bit interesting there. But anyways, once again, color science is looking amazing in this GoPro. Now, here's the Action 5 Pro. Cold, uncomfortable vibe. It kind of feels like the winter sun. The sun is there, but it feels empty and depressing, and it doesn't make you warm. I don't know why, but that's just the vibe I get from the Action 5 Pro. That's the main reason I never bought it. Because I want my vlogs to feel exciting and, good. Let me check my battery quick. Okay, still at 5%. Nice. If I go somewhere to like the beach, I want it to be more like a GoPro type of vibe instead of like an Action 5, like getting crushed in the dark shadows type of vibe. But boom. Action 5, Action 6, Action 5, Action 6. Mind you, the sun is covering half his face here, but also here, the sun is also covering half his face. So we got a similar angle of light, and what's amazing is this isn't edited or anything, and you can see that this just looks really good, right? This looks kind of like a GoPro. So here's a GoPro 13 versus the DJI Action 6. I'm just going to say Action 6 from now on. I do like the GoPro better here, but this is something that I could fix in post. And that's mainly because, unlike the Action 5 Pro, the darks aren't crushed. So if I really wanted to, I could simply add more light. It's a lot easier to raise the... Oh, wait, that's not true. Wait, what am I trying to say? Well, it's a lot easier to increase the light of something that's already well lit than to increase the light of something like the Action 5, where the shadows are a bit too dark and there's just not really any detail there. Here, it's not as vibrant as I'd like it to be, and it's not as bright as I'd like it to be. I like the exposure better in the GoPro Hero 13 here. But again, I could fix this in post, whereas with the Action 5, I probably just couldn't. So you can see there's kind of some similarity now. The Action 6 pretty much kind of looks like the GoPro Hero 13. And this is not even with any editing to make it look more like the GoPro Hero 13. So if you're the type of guy that just likes the GoPro Hero 13 color science like me, then you can pretty easily make it the same thing. One thing I did notice about the GoPro Hero 13 here is that the dude's face was way more sharp in this image. And I'm not going to lie, that did annoy me. It's kind of annoying. But one thing that the Action 6 makes up for is the fact that this guy walked over a small bridge and his face disappeared in the shadows because the GoPro Hero 13 has that 1/1.9 inch sensor, which is just garbage. Now, this sensor, the DJI sensor, is 1/1. 1/1.1. So, that sensor on the left had absolutely no issues. Now, once again, low light test. Look at this guy. GoPro 13 destroyed in the light. So if you're a vlogger and you want to be able to vlog no matter what time of day it is, you can do that with the Action 6. With the Hero 13, you simply cannot do that. And I watch many YouTubers that literally just stop recording once it gets past like 6 or 7 p.m. because they can't record anything anymore. Even when it's sunset or dusk or twilight, they still can't record. So here we got the Action 6, doing great. Now, what I found interesting here is that the Action 6 in these next couple of photos in this comparison test actually looks better, in my opinion, than the GoPro Hero 13 as far as color goes. I don't know if this guy forgot to turn 10-bit color on in GoPro 13. Maybe that happened, but I don't believe it. I think that maybe the Action 6 has just really caught up. At the bare minimum, guys, the Action 6 clearly looks just very similar to the Hero 13, which is really good news. And let me just show you what I mean. I mean, look at this. Again, the image on the left looks better. I'd say it has a better vibe than the GoPro. The grass looks a little, greener, a little more saturated. The building looks almost exactly the same, but then the sky looks a little more blue, which, again, you can tone down blues if you want post. But I really like the vibe on the left. I also like the vibe on the right, but this just goes to show that DJI has finally caught up to GoPro Hero 13, GoPro, with its color science and its nice warm colors, and I think that's a game changer, guys. So here's another comparison. Grass is looking a little greener. The blue skies are looking a little bluer. It's interesting to see the sun here is a 6 hexagonal something star. There is a little bit more sharpness in the GoPro Hero 13 in the daylight. I'm not going to lie. Okay, so let me check my battery quick. Okay, I got 3%. Let's make this quick. All right, so Action 6, guys, it looks exactly the same, in my opinion. The color has caught up. This is why I bought the Action 6. I needed this color to catch up. I needed the f-stops to catch up. I needed the high dynamic range to catch up, and it did. And they didn't disappoint. And again, nobody's talking about this. So here's my conclusion, bro. Look, Action 5 is looking dim. It's got the Android look. It's got the cheap drone from China look. But the Action 6, this legit looks indistinguishable to me from an iPhone. And whether you like it or not, everybody's used to the iPhone look, and iPhone is associated with premium quality, and that's just what people like to look at. And this, if you asked me if this was shot with an iPhone wide camera, I wouldn't even know. I'm be honest, right? I mean, the color looks the same now. So it's clearly better than the Action 5 Pro in this regard. Okay? And then the other thing, that's the second point that really drives my point home, is that when you compare it to a GoPro 13, it looks the same now. If not, maybe a little bit better. Look at this down here. I mean, you guys tell me if you can see a difference. I really can't even really see a difference. So I think the GoPro, I think the Action 6 has finally caught up to the GoPro 13's color science. So the Action 6 biases towards warmer tones but keeps colors accurate. DJI fixed its cheap camera look. The color science is now very similar to GoPro and iPhone, and Action 6 doesn't crush shadows anymore like the Action 5 and Nano did. Guys, if you want to buy an Action 6, then I've got the links in the bio, and I make money from it because it's a commission. And if you don't want that, then that's okay. Go support your favorite creator using their affiliate link. I hope you guys got a lot of, useful info out of this. And yeah, guys, have a great day. I'm going to end this before my battery dies. Peace.